Join us as we see a number one seed versus a former number one seed trying to reclaim his spot on top of his division. Join us on the Presidential Smackdown. All right, Andy. So let's go ahead and get into week four's matches. We saw some very, very interesting matches. Andy, you want to go ahead and roll down your three that you did?
Oh wow, Ashton. So you're gonna have me start this week. I like the little mix up there with me going first instead of you usually doing your games first. But guys, let's go ahead and kick off the first game. So guys, as you can see on your screen now, we have Democratic away candidate George W. Bush taking on his former and RNC South divisional rival in Dwight, undefeated Eisenhower there. As this game kind of goes on, it was Ike from the beginning of the matchup. Dwight Eisenhower came out with the lead, did enough to keep it. Bush just got behind. He fought hard to come back. He spent a lot of time and effort into Florida trying to peel that away. I don't think it really worked very well. And even if I'm pretty sure Bush at the end of this matchup got Florida to go his way, but he spent so much of his time, so much of his effort in said state that the rest of the states he couldn't really catch up in. Dwight Eisenhower just had the lead, held on to it the whole game, keeps on. He wins this matchup, stays undefeated. So it's very shocking that Dwight Eisenhower is the candidate that's undefeated out of all the candidates we've had in this presidential smackdown. But he ends up winning 357 to 181, over 82 million to 73 million when it comes to the popular vote. So good win for Dwight Eisenhower, and he stays perfect in this presidential smackdown.
Yeah, Andy, Ike laying down the SmackDown. Don't expect less from him anymore.
Yeah, Mr. Highway himself getting those W's. But moving right along, guys, to our next matchup of week 4. That is Gerald Ford desperately needing a win at home against the impeached campaign away candidate Richard Nixon.
His president.
Yeah. So we're going to see how this works out in this little matchup, Ashton. So the problem with this matchup, other than it just being a weird kind of they were president, vice president, we're replacing Nixon. So was Ford came out and only appealed to his base, his Republican base, and really didn't try to expand that reach. And I don't really understand the thinking behind that from Ford. Why did he try to go and do more? But you look at Nixon and how he tried, he got his Democratic base, but he went out and tried to get expanded and get some of these other states away that was not his normal Democratic leaning states. So that played dividends for Nixon. It paid off tremendously, and Nixon got a nice win, 324 to 214. And Nixon gets that win and continues in this presidential smackdown. Ford has just not been a strong candidate.
No, not really. He's one of the underperformers. I'm starting to tell in that RNC side, and I want to know how your other underperformer in Taft is doing. How'd he do?
Moving on to one of the most disrespectful games we've seen between two candidates, as Abraham Lincoln himself, who was the Democrat away candidate in this. Let me tell you guys listening, watching at home, he was not home. Good old big boy Taft was the home candidate, Republican candidate, and he got his gluteus maximus smacked in this game, Ashton. I mean, Abe demolished him from the get-go. It felt like at one point he was going to get almost every single southeastern state. It was that bad. Alabama was blue. Mississippi was blue at a point. It was terrible for Taft. I mean, at one point, Abe was up 54% to 37% of the popular vote. That's awful when you're below 40%. That is historically bad. So, with that being said, Abe ends up with 391 to Taft's 147. It is not the biggest blowout we've seen so far. That was earlier in week 1, but Abe getting 85.29 million of the popular vote versus big boy Taft's measly 59.19 popular vote. It was terrible. Abe gets a win, and he is fighting with his other RNC South competitors, and Bush, who's 2-2 after week 4, and Ike, who's undefeated. So that is the most competitive division out of all them all.
Hmm. Yeah, Andy. I really definitely see that division as one of the stronger ones. Abe is just. I think we were surprised when Abe lost his match. I think he only has one loss so far. So, I'll be surprised. Or I'll be interested to see who wins that division right there and who moves on to the playoffs. And I'm pretty sure the RNC wild card will probably come from that one. I would be shocked if it doesn't. Andy, so let's go ahead and move on to Harry Truman versus good old H.W. Bush. Let's see how if Papa Bush can do a little bit better than his son in week 4. And starting out, this was actually a pretty close game. You can kind of see that George H.W. sticks to the Southeast and hugs it for dear life, while Truman kind of starts lagging behind some, but being weirdly strong in like random states like Oklahoma and Missouri, having those states in the middle of the match while not being able to keep on to Washington state. So it was a really, really interesting tactic that you saw Truman taking, kind of like these middle states, but not being good in his core states he needs to win. Overall, you can kind of see George H.W. kind of just builds off of that Southeast and builds it up into a solid victory here at the end. You can see at points California starts to become red near the end. He like at one point George H.W. Bush had Texas, Florida, and California all red at the same time. So when that happens, it's pretty much over. And you can see here Truman just ends up having a blowout loss. Um, the DNC candidates, they are not doing good against the Republicans. I think we haven't had a single Democrat beat a single Republican, which is my conference is struggling against those um, when it's a match outside of the conference, Andy.
George H.W. Bush has been kind of the surprising upstart plucky kind of guy over there in the RNC division. He's 3-1 now after week 4. He hasn't had his bye yet, but he's 3-1. The only loss coming, I believe, to Teddy Roosevelt. So, which is a respectable loss. So, you know, I didn't think H.W. Bush was going to be this kind of sleeper, like super dog kind of guy coming out of that RNC, but it just goes to show you anything can happen in a presidential smackdown.
Yes, Andy. So let's go ahead and go to LBJ, your man, versus Mr. Woodrow Wilson, Mr. Glasses, and the away candidate being Wilson. Um, I was a little bit surprised how competitive this game was at points. You had California as a swing state, which you say, oh, that's pretty bad, but that's at the same time when really the home candidate had Pennsylvania, Michigan. So I was just surprised by how much this game was moving back and forth. I really didn't have a feel for who would win. Um, I was kind of impressed with how both candidates were like hitting back on one another, but later in the game, like you just saw it was a tie vote, but you could clearly see Lyndon Johnson was starting to lose um hold of the race, and it really kind of got out of hand after that. And at the end, you just really see you really see Lyndon Johnson get lose it and Wilson just pull out a really strong win as a away candidate.
Now, you guys watching at home that have been consistently watching with us will notice that last week's matchup was Wilson and LBJ again. They were going to be playing each divisional opponent twice. So it just happened to be 2 straight weeks they played each other. It just worked out that way. But both times, regardless of away, regardless of home, LBJ got his butt pretty much handed to him. It was a lot closer this week, him being the home candidate, but he still couldn't win. LBJ has been struggling mightily in this game mode so far. 0-3 and 0-3 in the division. So he's pretty much, unless he can turn around now and the next week, has shipped himself away and out of the playoffs. And poor Lyndon B. Johnson. Good, good for the minorities, but bad when it comes to presidential smackdown.
Yeah, if we want to talk about poor DNC candidates, man, Andy, let's get into FDR. FDR has had a rough first 3 weeks going to week 4. He was looking to face JFK, which me and you thought, had a good chance of winning this whole thing going into it. And we thought FDR would do solid too, but really, I mean, FDR was doing so terrible as the home candidate. I mean, JFK just looked like he was running away with it the whole time. I was surprised that JFK didn't win by more. Like, I'll give FDR credit for somewhat stopping the blowout, but like at the end, you end up getting FDR losing to JFK 333-8 to 200. So a pretty solid loss by Roosevelt there.
Also, just as the last candidate, this is the second time FDR has played JFK. They had the game in between them. They didn't play each other last week, but we go back to week 2, they played each other, right? And FDR kept it a little bit closer, but still lost. So he's not getting better. He's regressing. And we just don't understand, like me and you specifically, of what's going on. He lost his primetime game last week against George W. Bush, which was, for us, an upset. So FDR is just slipping. He's slipping way off of that banana peel, out of his wheelchair, and is just flopping on the ground like a fish. We don't know what's happening, and he's got to turn around. He is in the DNC North, so the best candidate there is JFK at 2-1. So he is lucky in the fact that he has not so much the strongest division, so he can pull it away. But something's got to change. He needs to pull himself up, sit himself back up in that wheelchair, and keep going and get some wins that he desperately needs.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be able to do that because his next week game is against Jimmy Carter. So,
Ooh, yep.
yeah, Jimmy Carter is a hard task to face because Jimmy Carter has been going through DNC candidates like butter. So, let's move on from Carter and let's talk about good old Andrew Jackson versus good old Bill Clinton, two Southerners going at it. Um, this was a even match, I would say the whole way through. Um, at points, I thought really thought Bill Clinton was gonna make a comeback. Um, or sorry, Andrew Jackson was gonna make a comeback. I really thought him being from the South and Tennessee would help him out, but it was a close game till the late mid, and it just became clear that um, Andrew Jackson wasn't gonna make that comeback. Um, he did start making it close, and you end up with a really close game at 284 for Bill Clinton and 254 for Andrew Jackson. It was a very weird map in the sense that you had Kentucky going blue at one point, and Virginia going blue, but then you had North Carolina going red. Like when you have Kentucky going blue, it's just a weird match, and it was surprising how close it was for what happened.
Looking at the DNC South, where both of these great men lie, it's host to one of our top contenders with the undefeated Jimmy Carter going into his primetime matchup later tonight. So both these candidates come in this game. Jackson was 1-1. Clinton was also he was 1-1. Both these candidates were fighting for prominence in the division. Clinton gets that upper hand. A very close battle, just barely over that 280 mark, but he moves up, can get that wild card spot now if he keeps performing and makes Jackson get into a hole. So it was a gutsy performance by Clinton. He got the job done, edged out a win, but that's all you need in the SmackDown to keep continuing to fight. So we're gonna see how good Clinton can be, but when he plays Carter, it's not gonna be easy for him. So watch out for that.
All right, Andy. So let's kind of break down the standings so far. Um, I'll talk about the DNC. Right now you have we'll show the standings. The DNC South, you can see Jimmy Carter is ahead of it. Um, it's very fascinating because DNC does not have a undefeated 3-win candidate. Just because
Not
of
yet,
how
at least. That
vibes. If Jimmy Carter wins, he will be
exactly.
undefeated,
We don't
and
know. Gotta watch the game
we
tonight.
don't know. Um, but really, the DNC in those interconference games, or not interconference, but outer conference games, has really struggled. The RNC has been picking off wins. Some of the RNC divisions are a lot more competitive in the sense of like how many wins they'll get up to. In general, like the DNC North is just not a good conference. JFK's only wins, I believe, are from other conference opponents. So it's a really struggle. The DNC also has two 0-3 candidates, LBJ and FDR. So they'll
Oh,
be looking for wins. Just like the struggle and maybe I I don't know, Andy. I don't know.
I think the most interesting thing about tonight's game is we have the undefeated Carter taking on a guy in Teddy Roosevelt who's 2-1 in the standings, as you can see, and 2-0 in the division. Meaning, if Teddy can guts his way to a win tonight, he will move up to 3-1 and 3-0 in the conference. Meaning, he takes that spot away from George H.W. Bush. He has a better divisional record. He moves in to that spot. He
Hmm.
becomes the second place guy in the entire RNC because Eisenhower's undefeated, obviously. But so it's such a critical matchup tonight that we didn't think was going to be critical. I think me and you both like Teddy Roosevelt going into this, but there's no way we predicted Carter to be undefeated in this
Hmm.
monster that man over there in the DNC.
Yeah. You're really talking about a situation where Teddy desperately needs this win to keep up with George H.W. Bush, and Jimmy Carter really needs this win to cement his pace to probably get that number one seed because in the playoff structure, the higher seed you are, the better position you are, and you want to be in a better position.
The one thing I say is that Teddy definitely needs this win more because even if Carter loses, he has the tiebreaker over Bill Clinton. He beat Bill Clinton in a previous week, so he still is in charge of that DNC South, meaning he gets a playoff berth. Teddy has to win to secure his playoff berth.
Hmm. Or he falls to 500, which is same thing where you see people like George Bush is 500 in his division. So, Andy, let's talk about really this tonight's matchup: Jimmy Carter versus I would say Teddy Roosevelt. Two un or let's say two surprising people. I don't think we both expected them in the sense to be number one in both their divisions or fighting for number one in Teddy's case.
Definitely not Ashton. I know Teddy had some of those intangibles that you like, but we didn't see him as being the like number one guy in the RNC. You have guys like Abraham Lincoln over there. So and the same thing with the Democratic side. I'm not saying Carter was awful, but like he's a one-term president. So you have guys like FDR, JFK, just to name a few, Obama in that DNC, and he's better than them according to the standings right now. It's weird. Maybe that's just the way the divisions play out, but you know, it's interesting to see so far, only through almost through 4 weeks, how it's not what we expected.
Hmm. All right, Andy, let's get into our prime time matchup. All right, Andy, let's get the show on the road. Andy, who do you have winning this? Do you have good old Jimmy Carter, or do you have Abe continue, or not Abe? Do you have Roosevelt continuing the streak of the RNC to destroy Democrats in their general election matchups?
As much as I want to go for Teddy the Rough Rider, honestly, I can't deny the undefeated majesticness of the peanut farmer himself. I really have Carter win this game. I think it's going to be a close, hard fought game, but I think Carter is just going to keep it up and be that horse for the Democratic National Conference.
Yeah, I think Jimmy pulls out that first win against a Republican mainly because he has Georgia. That's a big advantage for a Democratic candidate. That's a lot of electoral votes for a Republican to kind of have to scrap over, and Carter can focus elsewhere. Like even if he can't win Georgia, he's gonna always make it close because that's where he's from.
That's what's such a good thing about Carter, which is some of these other candidates we see, like, you look at Nixon or you look at Reagan. These guys are from California. They're not going to really affect much. There's Republicans that are from a home state that they just throw away. But if they were from another state, like Carter with Georgia or Virginia or Pennsylvania, that desperately helps them, gives those basically those free points there, or at least points where they don't have to spend as much time. But so Ohio has already started to go
Ooh.
to Teddy. That's a good pickup.
That's gun control for Jimmy Carter.
You see Pennsylvania going to Carter as well after that gun control thing. Florida's up for grabs.
Georgia is dead even. And look at the enthusiasm. That determines who would win the undecideds. And he has better enthusiasm in Georgia. That's a key to kind of look at that right there. Florida.
That's interesting is you look at Washington State up there in the Northwest is not a color yet. So Roosevelt can pick that state off if he keeps putting some effort into that state, along with Colorado, and you look at stuff like that.
Wow, he's doubling down on the assault weapons ban.
And that made North Carolina go full Teddy there, so that's really going to hurt him. Georgia, his home state, might flip back to the Republican side, and it
Oh,
did. Wow, Teddy's doing really good. And Carter's just
wow.
choosing the wrong paths here so far.
Yeah, it looks like Carter blown an early lead in his home state. And yeah, this is starting to look bad for Carter.
Entire Southeast red. The only four states in the Northeast, really. Like, it's just not looking good for Carter, who,
Hawaii is purple.
when he
Ooh.
went full left and said banning
Oh,
guns, that
social
hurt
justice. Oh no. Oh no. And
Carter.
this
What are you
is
doing? He lost Washington.
oh man.
Jeez.
But it's close on the popular vote. That's the interesting thing.
It's
It's
close because
still four
California, New York,
points.
and Florida, California, New York, and Florida make up a huge chunk of the votes.
Yeah, Illinois. He's struggling for Illinois. Oh man.
There you go.
He got Virginia. That's what he needs. He needs Virginia. He needs Florida. He has to win Florida. Like that's a must if Carter wants to somehow pull out a win. Like you already have Teddy sewing up like the Southeast, and now Colorado is red too.
With this being week 16, I just don't think there's enough time, honestly, Ashton, for Carter to come back when the entire Southeast is full red.
I still
Except
think it's
Florida.
close enough. If Carter can pick off Florida and win the rest of the swing states, like he's behind in Illinois, that's bad.
It's looking like the entire really Midwest is just going to go to Teddy, and that's a problem. You can't have that. Not the entirety of it. You got to flip some of those states. And then he's got the Northeast locked down, and that's good for Carter, but he's got to branch out and get those Rust Belt states. He's got to fight for Wisconsin. He's got to fight for Michigan and Pennsylvania. He's got to get those wins. And he's struggling right now. He's slowly winning Washington State back, but that's not
Oh, he got Florida. That's really big. Really big. And he sold up Illinois. He has to have Illinois.
That's good for Teddy. Those traditional values will help him in some of those states.
Yep.
Florida
Florida is even. Ohio is now purple. Pennsylvania.
back to blue.
Yeah, Florida is this. It's gonna be Florida. Andy, this is coming down to the wire. You have a lot of purple states.
Look at the popular vote. 49% is still in Teddy's favor. I don't think it's as close as what the map is showing, at least. There goes Michigan and Florida now above blue. That will help.
I
him
actually still.
there. Pennsylvania might flip back to blue.
Wow.
It's getting close in this last week. Carter with the complete 180, getting all of the Rust Belt except for Minnesota there looks like in Ohio.
Andy, this is a really close one. I think this will come down to the wire. I really do because like Florida is blue, Virginia is blue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. That it makes up, and like you still have Teddy has a weak side. He sewed up a lot of Southeast, but like Missouri, not putting down Missouri could hurt him if he ends up picking off a state like Washington. Like he's only gaining 2 electoral votes by winning Washington. It's better than nothing, but like Jimmy Carter is leading in New Mexico, in Colorado, and Nevada.
My prediction, Ashton, is if you look at the state of Maine up there in the Northeast, if Teddy in election day wins first and wins that state of Maine, I predict he wins because Carter cannot lose any of the states he is supposed to have in order to flip the script from his terrible start.
Uh, I think Jimmy Carter has it. Like
I got
having
to go with Teddy, Ashton.
I think Jimmy Carter, like having Florida is a big deal. It's a really big deal, and it allows you to make a mistake like losing Washington. It really does.
Washington, Ashton. He's going to lose Washington, Pennsylvania. I mean, that's going to go to Teddy. I think Teddy keeps.
That's a half and half.
I think Teddy keeps Missouri but loses Iowa.
Look at the enthusiasm of Democrats in Pennsylvania. 96% to 90. I don't think he's winning that.
It's the last week. Anything can happen, Ashton. Anything can happen. Nice stop there for Carter in Missouri. He goes to Washington.
Oh,
And
I think they just traded Pennsylvania and Virginia, which does not bode well for Teddy.
oh, like I said, Missouri was going to go to Teddy. Iowa. If Teddy wins Maine, it's over. And I'm telling you, Teddy's going to win. That Maine is huge. Picks off another one in up there in the Northeast state. Like those are huge little spots you can't lose there. Oh, look, Pennsylvania is Teddy. I'm hearing a little from you over there, Ashton.
I still have faith in Jimmy. I still have faith.
Oh, I think Jimmy could do it, but he's got to steal these states up here. Got to steal them. He can't do it. That's it. He can't do it. It's it. It's over, Ashton. Teddy is going to win this matchup. Oh. Oh. Teddy has won. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh! Did he draw it? Yes, he did!
Oh my gosh. 2-point win for Carter. Nail biter in this presidential smackdown. My gosh. My gosh, Ashton. I thought for sure Teddy had that.
Oh my gosh, Andy, that was
Map.
that was close. Losing Pennsylvania, I thought they traded Pennsylvania and Virginia. And look, Washington wasn't even close. Let's see if there was a state that decided it. Colorado and New Mexico effectively, and Nevada all decided this election. All three of those states narrowly went for Carter.
What a game.
And Pennsylvania was within a point.
I can't believe Carter did that. Wow, he stays undefeated. That's insane. Carter is the new man in this SmackDown.
Yeah, Andy, what's your reaction to that nail biter? That's our first primetime game that was arguably 50-50 going into it, and let me go ahead and look at the exit polls, and yeah, Jimmy Carter loses the popular vote but wins the electoral college.
Which is strange to me because he's a Democrat. That rarely happens. A Democrat losing the popular vote but winning the electoral college, like it's so crazy. It's so fun to see these things because this doesn't happen like that in the real world. And I know me and you both predicted Carter to win, and good for us for getting the win there. But going into this final stretch, I for sure thought Teddy had the win. But wow, those few couple states Carter won, stole it, and Mr. Peanut Man is one of the most scariest presidents to deal with in this series.
Yeah, he pulled out the first Democratic win over a Republican, and it was hard fought. And I think Teddy is one of the top contenders for the RNC. Um, it's kind of sad to see him drop to 500 because his record doesn't show how good of a candidate he is. All right, Andy. Thank you guys for everyone for watching. I hope everyone tunes in next week. Andy, who is in our primetime match in week 5?
Week five's primetime matchup, Ashton, and everyone else watching at home, is Mr. Impeached Bill Clinton. Actually, Mr. Resigned before getting impeached, or before getting forced to remove from office. But
No,
Bill Clinton
that's
versus
Nixon.
no
Bill
Bill Clinton.
Clinton never left. He got
Whatever.
impeached, but never left.
I'll restart. I'll restart. Week five's matchup, Ashton, and everyone else watching at home, is the Democratic candidate, Mr. Impeached Bill Clinton, taking on one of the worst candidates we have in Big Boy Taft. So, you know, still come watch it. It's a primetime matchup, but we're thinking Clinton victory here.
Yeah, Andy, I'm pretty sure if Taft could, he would impeach his bathtub for getting stuck in it. I don't expect Taft, I'm sorry, that's a Taft joke. Um, I don't expect much of a fight, but we'll see if Taft can pull the upset and keep the RNC having their advantage. I hope everyone tunes in next week. Have a great day.